Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Startup Junkies Podcast. Thank you for listening or watching from wherever you are and however you're listening or watching. We appreciate you for spending some of your day with us or your car ride or whatever. Go ahead and like, subscribe, however you consume your podcast. Just be prepared to just always consume the Startup Junkies Podcast. My name is Caleb Talley. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Startup Junkie. I'm joined by my co-host, Jeff Emerine, founder and managing director of Startup Junkie.
Howdy, everybody.
I've got Matthew Ward, our MBA intern extraordinaire, and we are very excited today to be joined by David J. David's the founder and CEO of Warm Welcome. He was recently named a top 100 tech innovator and influencer. And I noticed, David, on your bio, you have that you are a startup junkie. And I think that's perfect because guess what? We are too. You're on the Startup Junkie Podcast. So welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, excited to be here. And I guess we're all kind of crazy enough to be in the startup world. So it's good to be in good company.
Talk a little bit about what you're doing today, the venture of the moment, and then we'll talk about your journey a little bit as well.
Yeah, so Warm Welcome is the newest one, and we're having a lot of fun with it. It's a way to make your business more personal and use video to build trust and build better relationships, and really stand out. Everyone is using text for their website and text in emails and text messages, right? And so by converting over to video, putting a face, a smile, right? I mean, just a smile alone kind of stands out these days because you walk around, everyone's got masks on, you can't see anything. So just smiling at people over video kind of brightens their day a little bit. And so it was a pet project years ago, and then we had it on the back burner. And then the pandemic hit, and everyone got pushed remote. Was looking for video stuff, and so we dove in, and I've had a pretty exciting kind of wild ride this last year.
Excellent. And so back us up a little bit. I mean, it sounds like your bio, you said something which is appealing to us because it's our brand, that you're a startup junkie by affliction, I guess. Talk about some of that journey to get to Warm Welcome.
So I, like a lot of techies and startup guys, I dropped out of college back in 2001. And that was kind of the start of it. I had to figure out what I was going to do. And I started a photography business and started to hit all the kind of typical service business problems, right? Scale problems. It's like, okay, I can do so many photo shoots in a year, but that's it. Like, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. And so it was then that I started to build community. And in the photo world at the time, it was a pretty competitive space. There weren't a lot of people sharing information, helping other people. And so this community built really quickly. And from there, we started to hear people's problems. Hey, how do I do this? How do I market my business? How do I deliver the photos? And I teamed up with some buddies and we started building software. And over the next few years, moved out of the service business of photography and moved into the software space. So it was kind of one of those happy accidents, I guess, that, like most innovation, it comes out of frustration, comes out of, having a problem or seeing a better way for the world to be. And that's what I've been trying to do, is live through those frustrating moments of scale problems or service problems or whatever, and solve them with tech.
David, could you walk us through how Warm Welcome works?
Sure. Yeah. So what we took, and I say we, it's a fractional company, a bunch of different people working on it from all over the world. So that's why I say that. But the approach we took was different from a lot of early products. So in a market like this, which I'll still call, video communication early market, even though it feels like we're already kind of over it with all the Zoom calls in the last year. But I think it is early, and I think it's a shift that's much bigger than just a 10-year shift or 20-year shift. I think we're on the edge of like a 600-year shift in the way that people communicate. And of course, 600 years ago is when the printing press came out. And it was possibly the first thing in the world that scaled. And so, people became obsessed with written communication because it scaled. I was like, wow, this is cool. I can write something down and print it 1,000,000 times. And that's great. But the written word is kind of a crappy way for humans to communicate, right? And if there isn't a better example than Facebook for that, right? Like in the last year, and I'm not trying to knock Facebook, right? But in the last year, we've seen all this written communication on Facebook and how negative it is, and how humans just, there's no nuance. There's no, personality to it. It's just words, and it turns, kind of angry. A lot of times words, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, wherever, you read them in this negative state. Whereas human communication, like even like this, you're getting more from me than what I'm just saying, right? You're seeing that sometimes I'm smiling when I'm saying something, or, I might be, have a different tone of voice. And so now with the internet and with video, and with every single person having a video camera with them all the time, we can do communication that scales in a much better way than text communication. So anyway, long way to kind of start the story on warm welcome, but that's where we think we are in the market. And so we decided to take a strategic approach instead of just a tactical approach. So the other video email services, there's lots of them now. BombBomb, Bonjoro, a whole bunch of Dub. There's tons, and it's great. Like we don't have a problem with that. They've taken a tactical approach of, if you want to send a video email, you can use our app to do that. But as the market matures, it needs more than just a tactical solution to a problem. It needs a strategic solution to the problem. And so that's where we said we want to personalize every touch point on the customer journey. Not just send a video email for the sake of sending a video email, but we want, from the moment that they hear about our business, maybe it's through a business card. Well, what happens to most paper cardboard business cards? They get thrown away. They're not scalable. They're not shareable, right? It's just one person gives it to one person and then they throw it away. And where a video business card can deliver so much more information, and it can be shared with people over and over and over again. So from that point to your website, your website is something that a lot of people don't personalize. They have beautiful stock imagery or photos or videos that they took, but it's not personal. And so we add a little video bubble that can have you down in the bottom corner of the website waving at somebody, and they can click, and you can have an asynchronous conversation with them. So it's things like that where we wanted to go all the way around, so from a video business card to a video email signature to video emails to video embedded on your website, or video bubbles on your website. All of those are touch points that we wanted to make consistent and personal. And so that's the kind of the approach we took with Warm Welcome.
I worry that if somebody goes to the Startup Junkie website and sees me waving at them in the corner, that they might hit that little red X in the corner.
Well, think about it like a store. If you walked into the Apple store and you walked around and there's all these beautiful products around, but there was nobody there. There was no one at the front door greeting you, giving you a warm welcome, right? Like, it would be a much different experience. And it's that way online right now. Online is it's kind of dark. It's like not personal. There's no humans there, but your website is your storefront. So why wouldn't you greet a customer on the web in the same way that you do in a physical store? It's possible now, and it's very powerful when people do it.
Is a kind of a follow-up. Video is obviously a big trend, and it's eating the world by virtue of what we've had to deal with. I mean, telepresence, we used to call it back in the day. But there's this phenomenon of Clubhouse that's popped up, which is sort of spontaneous audio chat. How do you see the world of audio chat, something like Clubhouse, which is a social network of a kind of a different flavor, fitting into the total picture? What's its place, I guess, in the scheme of things for better communication?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's part of the transition, and there's obviously a place for just audio, right? You don't want to be on a video call while you're driving, for example.
Right.
And so there's a lot of people that commute still and will commute again in the future, and audio is an easier thing to consume in that way. But I think it's a transit. I think Clubhouse is a perfect example of a transition in where social networking is going, moving from mostly text to, audio. And then I think it will move into video, where you'll have a Clubhouse type of thing that's video, and people pop on and they do it. And people are already doing it in their own way, using Zoom for it and other things. But AirMeet is another example of a company that kind of is moving in that direction. And so, yeah, Clubhouse is awesome, and it shows the movement away from text to communication that's just better.
Interesting. As you build Warm Welcome, are you going the venture capital route? Are you bootstrapping? What's the play for getting to scale?
It's bootstrapped right now. Everything I've done has been bootstrapped. We're considering that. We're kind of toying with it. The longer we can go without it, the better valuation we'll get. So we're doing pretty well just bootstrapping it right now. And I have other companies, so I'll use money from those to fund it. So essentially, I'm funding it. It's not paying for itself yet, but it's growing and growing, and we're still building a lot. So we're still investing a lot in the development on it. So yeah, we're open to it. I think, there's good and bad to both. I could give you more of my thoughts just on venture capital and I think some of the things that it's done that have harmed the startup ecosystem, and given, especially employees, a big entitlement attitude of, this company is kind of here to serve me instead of I'm at this company to serve the customers. And it's all about kind of themselves and what they get, and do they pay for my lunch, and can I work from anywhere, and can I, all these types of things that venture capital, when they're pumping money into businesses and trying to get talent, is kind of gone a little bit crazy, right?
Yeah, and it's a treadmill that once you get on it, you got to stay on it. And regardless of whether or not as a founder you give up majority interest or not, you're kind of marching to the beat of their drum. And they're going to have a lot to say about how the company grows and when it exits and all that. The happiest people I've known in my career are the ones that, when they decided to finally sell, they owned 100% of their company, because they figured out a way to build it on customer dollars, by a good business model, rather than having to take outside capital. So I'm always interested in people's perception of that, and I'm pretty active in the venture investing side myself, both as an angel and a fund manager. Mm-hmm. First conversation I typically have is to try to discourage people from doing it. Figure out how to do it without that. And if you absolutely are going to miss a market opportunity, then you can take it if you need it to go faster. But yeah, I'm always curious of seasoned people views on that, because we tend to get really captivated in the mythology that that's the way you have to do it, and it's not always true. by any means.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good, and the more of a balance, and the more companies are focused on, being real companies that make money and serve customers, and not just about courting the next round, right? It's like, that's when it's a little bit, I don't know, less about the actual, product or people that you're helping, and it's about just getting someone else to write you a check.
Exactly. Celebrating the wrong things sometimes when
Mm-hmm.
you get too caught up in that. Well, I'm gonna hand over the question baton to the other guys, because I tend to get locked in and dominate all the conversation. So Caleb, go ahead, fire away.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd be interested to know, you kind of touched on, the market still being early for video, despite the fact that we've been on video for about a year now. I would be interested to hear kind of the journey of the past, I guess, almost 12 months now, pandemic life of, people have gone through periods where they were, very isolated for an extended period of time. Did you see, I guess, like a spark and interest there to introduce video, especially during those periods of time when most of the country was, pretty well locked down and hadn't seen people?
Absolutely. Yeah, the interest both on the business side and then also on the customer side of being willing to interact with this type of content, whether it's like send in a video testimonial or respond to a video email with video, things like that. All the barriers got broken down, right? Where people used to think that video had to be produced and polished and perfect. And what we found this year is that people actually don't want that most of the time. They want it to be personal, and they want it to be, engaging because it's real and authentic, not because it's produced and perfect. So those were the big barriers that the world needed to break down for people to really adopt video. Because you hear people like, I'm not comfortable on video. And it's like, well, are you comfortable talking to somebody? Like if not, you may, I don't know, you probably don't want to be on the forward side of a business. Maybe, be in the back, but it's become much more just conversational, and it's not about like, being all done up and, showing off as this produced person. It's like, no, just be you.
David, something that caught my eye was Mr. Wonderful on the front of your website. How did that come along? I'd love to hear that story.
Well, part of Warm Welcome was inspired by both him and Gary Vaynerchuk. They've really taken this approach of question and answer videos and leveraged it to the extreme and done a wonderful job. And you'll see on the Ask Mr. Wonderful show on YouTube or the Ask Gary V show that a lot of their content is basically just giving the platform to somebody else who asks them a question, and then they give a response to that question. And it's really powerful. It's really engaging because it's a real question from a real person, just like us, asking this big shot, and the big shot taking the time to answer it. And everyone likes watching that. It's like, doesn't have to be fancy. It just is what it is. And so when we started building this conversational question and answer approach, I was reading a book from Donald Miller. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He's doing a lot in kind of the marketing space, trying to kind of disrupt business schools, actually, and wrote a book called Business Made Simple and Marketing Made Simple. But he said something which really struck me. He said, the two things that your customers are looking for you or looking from for you are empathy and authority. They want you to care about their problem, and then they want you to, show them or prove that you have the authority to solve that problem. And that's what these question and answer videos do, right? Or when you put a video bubble on your website, or you send out a video email to your customers and you say, hey, would love to hear from you. because it gives them the opportunity to share their problem with you. And then if you take the time to answer those questions, it shows that you care and that you have something to offer back. And so, yeah, so we wrote him and said, you know, kind of flattered him and said, hey, like, you've inspired this business. And, you know, he liked that. And so we got a little testimonial back from him, which is cool.
Pretty good brand association there. He's only got about 6.5 million people that watch him every week.
Yeah.
On the show.
Yeah.
That's great. You know, to your point about, as we think about how video has been used to make it more personal, SaaS software-based platform we're familiar with, it's in the EdTech, educational technology space. They really adopted what Aaron Ross espoused in predictable revenue, the idea of having sales development reps and multiple touch points and whatnot. But where they really kind of advanced the state of that is very quickly after getting a qualified lead, they'll do a customized, personalized video in a very short amount of time, specifically to that person that they're approaching, where there's more interest. And it's been incredibly powerful. Their close rate on one of the most difficult sectors you'd ever want to sell into is pretty ridiculous. I mean, it's really high. For specifically that idea of showing empathy, understanding their problem, and then the authority, a solution that solves it because they've solved it for 600 other similar customers. Yeah. So there's really something to that. I mean, for sure. You guys you're onto something that's the best ideas for me are the ones that are simple. And when you hear it, you're like, yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, it's human nature to agree with it. So
that's great. Yeah, just looking people in the eye. They say that's the number one thing that builds trust, is when you can look in somebody's eyes and judge for yourself whether or not you trust them and whether or not you want to work with them. So we're sending out all these drip emails with just text. Nobody trusts text anymore.
Yeah.
And so just by switching over and just communicating in a different way, you stand out. You have such an advantage over people who are kind of stuck in their old text emails.
I'll give you one more example, which I think you would be in line with what you're saying. So in order to get a better response rate for let's say it's a consultative sale in a very complex market or vertical you're selling into, a marketing group that we've worked with, what they'll do is they will send in a FedEx envelope something that's about the size of a large Hershey bar. That's a flip up brochure that as soon as you flip it up, a video clicks in that's personalized to the person that received it. And then it goes through the elements of the solution and some diagnostic factor of what has been done for other businesses and whatnot. Very short, but 100% open rate on a FedEx envelope versus another piece of junk mail. And then you get something that's got a video on it, you open it up, you're going to listen to it, right? Because it's a human being there rather than something you don't really want to take the time to read. So I think it just speaks to what you're saying, is the power of it being more personalized. We're starting to see that in really interesting ways.
I love it. What a great idea. You know, people will spend $10 to get a lead from Facebook, but this company has created something totally stand out, and it probably costs them, $10 or less to do it. So that's
Absolutely.
great.
Very clever way to do it. And people don't feel like it's just one, the only thing that keeps the Postal Service in business is all the stuff that ends up in my burn barrel.
Yeah.
Mountains of it. You talk about a sustainability issue. It's mountains of crap that most people don't look at. Mm-hmm. So if you can make that more personal, where it's something that's really going to have an impact, your closure rate, your redemption rate, your lead generation rate should be higher. I mean, there's really something to what you guys are doing. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And the ROI on it is certainly real, as you're pointing out. And then even on our side, just the energy and the different kind of excitement that you get when you're recording a video for somebody versus typing an email for somebody. It's like you enjoy that interaction more. You feel like you can put more of yourself into it, and it takes less of you to do it. And so that's a nice kind of value add is you're kind of staying more connected to the contribution that you're making to your business or to a business. And
I got to ask the question, because you mentioned it before we came on, that you made the move from Oregon to Florida.
yeah.
Was that strategic, or was it because you wanted warm rain rather than cold rain? What was the thinking behind
it was kind of all the above, one driver on the business side is I'm working on selling a company, so no income tax here, so that's helpful. The other side of it was last year, I think most people felt really out of control. And whether that was because of politics or because of COVID or whatever it was in their life, it just felt like they couldn't move forward in their life, which is a frustrating place for us, right? Especially us startup people. Like, that sucks. Like, we want to move forward. And so, in Oregon and the West Coast in general is still pretty locked up. And my wife and I and our kids were like, you know what? We just need to make a change that we just decide, hey, we're going to go live somewhere and live our life. And Florida was a place where we could do that. And so for us, it was just about making those steps forward and saying, hey, we're going to do this. And we're going to take control of this year and not let it kind of get dictated by other things. So kind of all of those things that were drivers. Also, it's very cold in Oregon right now. And so we're like, hey, we'll come down here, and it's chilly here, but not snowing.
Which part of Florida did you end up in?
In the Panhandle. So kind of
nice.
by seaside.
Nice. Well, the Panhandle gets some cool weather, but it's not like cool compared to Rocky Mountain or Pacific Northwest cool.
Yeah.
A cold day is, it only got to 55 today. Darn.
Right.
No, that's great. Well, congratulations on the move. Very exciting.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know in the past few months in regard to, like the videos on email signatures or business cards. The last few months, have you seen a rise in people adding finger guns to their personal video?
Finger guns. I'll have to check that out. Probably after last year, I think everyone has their own gun. Everyone bought guns last year.
That would be awesome. That'd be pretty interesting to put in your business card too, or your business video.
Yeah.
David, something I'd be curious about from your perspective as a serial entrepreneur. What does success look like for you in the next 3 to 5 years?
It's 100% focused on my family. I have 2 boys, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And, I think the next 10 years are kind of a lot of the time that I'll get with them. And so I want to create more of a blended world in terms of not just tech, right? Like, if it's all tech, they can only be a part of that on a very small level. If there's a attachment, if the businesses I create are in the physical world, I'll say, I can do more of that with them, and I can build things with them. And maybe there's a tech component because I like technology and I know that. But if we're going and working on, here's an extreme example, but if we have a farm, like, I can go and feed the cows with my kid and teach him how to work. And this is what, work looks like. If I just have to stiff arm him out of another Zoom meeting, like, he doesn't really get to appreciate, work or what, mom and dad do. Like, he just is kind of like, oh, when they're working, they can't be with me. And that sucks. So for me, that's one of the drivers for selling one of the companies is like, let's start to balance this a little bit more and have more of it dictated by the season of life that my family's in. And, when my kids are 15, like, they're going to be doing their own thing. I can go start another tech company if I want, but I'd like to do some things that incorporate them a lot more.
That's a great insight because, having been a 9-time serial entrepreneur over the years, 4 kids and 4 grandkids. When my 2 older kids were small, I was absent. I was on a plane, in a meeting, going somewhere, and I don't have regrets because you don't know what you don't know when you're going through it. But that's a really good value judgment that you made, because that fleeting amount of time when they're small and at home goes by incredibly fast. So that's a great insight, and it's one that, by being successful, what you really have command of, it's not stacking up more toys or whatnot, is you have control over your time where you can spend it the way you want to spend it. And that's investing in your family. Ultimately, a family is the only legacy that really matters in the scheme of things. So that's really good answer that I hope more entrepreneurs and business people will listen to, because very few people get to the end of a career and say, gee, I wish I'd worked more.
Mm-hmm.
It's like mostly, I wish I'd spent more quality time with my family, enjoying them, because it's fleeting. It goes by quickly.
Yeah.
Great insight.
Well, this is probably part of the interview where we look to land the plane. I think, the question we usually ask our guests, if you had the opportunity to go back and visit with your younger self, before, whether it's this current venture or some of the others that you've worked on, what sort of advice might you give yourself?
Just to be more patient, honestly. Like, I'm not a very patient person, and my wife and kids will validate that every day. But I think early on, actually the place that I've lost the most money was being early in a market. And, anyone who kind of leans on the innovator, early adopter side of things, like they see this stuff and like they push it into existence even before the market's ready for it, and you burn a lot of money doing that. And so there's always a lot of talk about speed and pace of growth and all this sort of stuff, and that's fine, but giving yourself time to mature into who you are and get the self-awareness that it takes really to start something in a decently healthy way. I don't know if any startups are like healthy, but yeah, patience is one of those things that isn't talked a lot about, that I would have probably a lot more longtime friends had I been more patient. I would have probably a lot different businesses had I been a little bit more patient with some of them. So that's something I'm still working on. That
will be a lifelong challenge.
Yeah.
It's hard to get beyond that sense of urgency you have if you're an entrepreneur. With your current venture with Warm Welcome, what's the best way for our listeners and viewers to find out more about what you're up to?
Check it out. Yeah, just warmwelcome.com, and you can go and try it out for free. The video business cards and the email signatures, you can all use those for free. And yeah, just see what it's like, kind of tiptoe into that space where you're starting to send a couple videos to people instead of a text email, or send them a video business card and see how they respond. Because it's fun. It's fun on all sides, and people, just the novelty of it right now, people tend to like that and makes them smile. So
that's a good call to action. Hey, thanks for coming on. It was really great to have you on. Congratulations on all the success and the move to sunny Florida, and best of luck to you. Don't be a stranger. Maybe we'll have you back on after a year or so and get an update.
Thanks. I'd love it. Appreciate you guys and all that you're doing.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, David.